Sri Lanka's Prime Minister says his country is now bankrupt and that there's no immediate end to the current economic crisis. Sri Lankans are facing hardships on many fronts. Petrol supplies have dried up because foreign currency reserves to pay for fuel imports have run out. Prices have soared, with food inflation now running at about 57% annually. More than 2/3 of Sri Lankan households say they're eating less as a result. Schools and offices are currently closed to keep people off the streets. People are angry and frustrated, and they're blaming politicians for the crisis, especially President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his family, which dominate politics. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe informed Parliament of Sri Lanka's insolvency on Tuesday. He said the economic crisis would be around until at least the end of next year. He added that bailout talks with the IMF depended on finalising a debt restructuring plan with creditors in the coming weeks. Here's more of his remarks to lawmakers.
Our country has held talks with the IMF on many occasions before, but this time the situation is different from all those previous occasions. In the past, we have held discussions as a developing country, but now the situation is different. We are now participating in the negotiations as a bankrupt country. Therefore, we have to face a more difficult and complicated situation than previous negotiations.
Let's go now to Colombo and speak to journalist Marlon Arisinghe. Welcome to DW News Asia. The government says Sri Lanka is now bankrupt. Why is it bankrupt, and how much worse can it get?
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that we've hit rock bottom. But with every passing day, it feels like we are sinking even further. So it's more of an economic, I guess, like an economic death spiral. How did we get here? That's been discussed extensively over the last few months. And, we have also become like a cautionary tale or like a horror story to other countries. In brief, the main causes are corruption, severe economic mismanagement, political incompetence and arrogance, and misguided policies, like the overnight chemical fertilizer ban last year. Which is why, in addition to all these crises, we also have a looming food crisis to look forward to. And, currently, I'm experiencing power cut right now. So this is the state of things or state of affairs right now in Sri Lanka.
You've touched on it a bit there, these stories of desperation and suffering, which is sort of veering into a humanitarian crisis. How is this situation affecting people?
Yeah, you're right. Undeniably, it is a humanitarian crisis. There's a shortage of life-saving drugs and medical equipment. The majority of small businesses have completely closed down. Even well-established businesses, informal workers and daily wage earners are undergoing immense suffering, because of skyrocketing inflation. And as human rights activists have pointed out, in addition to a humanitarian crisis, this has also turned into a human rights crisis. Just a few hours ago, peaceful protesters were arrested, and I'm getting reports that even about 20 minutes back, protesters were tear gassed, right? So, and just a few days ago, we had a footage of an army officer kicking a citizen at a fuel shed. And this man was not even a protester, he was just simply asking some questions. So and we see this kind of incidents over the last few, over the last few weeks, of police brutality and armed forces brutality. So it is a humanitarian crisis as well as a human rights crisis right now.
A human rights crisis too. People, of course, want a way out. The IMF and the World Bank, though, are hesitant to come to the rescue of Sri Lanka. Why is that?
Well, the Prime Minister actually mentioned in Parliament yesterday that the first round of discussions with the IMF has been a success. But the assistance depends on a debt restructuring program. Now, the IMF recently stressed that other challenges are needed to be addressed, like containing rising inflation, attending to the severe balance of payments pressures, and reducing the country's vulnerability to corruption. So in my opinion, there is a correlation between the IMF and political stability, dealing with corruption, having a proper plan, and assurance that the government will stick to the conditions of the IMF deal once it's agreed. So these are some of the challenges, I think, which we are facing when it comes to the agreement with the IMF.
Lots of challenges that you've outlined there. People in Sri Lanka say this situation, why the country is in this situation, is the fault of the powerful and dominant Rajapaksa family. Why are they getting the blame?
Well, the Rajapaksa family has been often labelled as a family business. And if you go back to Gotabaya Rajapaksa's presidential campaign in 2019, a kind of like a highly mythicized figure was created. The political slogan was "Vadakarana Ape Virua," which means the war hero that works. So the voters were very optimistic of a systems change. But when it was evident that the family just picked up where they left off in 2015, anger started building up, and which eventually developed into the current slogans, which is "Go Home Gota" and "Go Home Rajapaksas." I think people now see that the decisions that were taken by the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, PM and Finance Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, and then Basil Rajapaksa, who was also Finance Minister for a short time, have led to the current crisis. So this is why the people are blaming the Rajapaksa.
There are some big regional players here, of course, that being India and China. What have they promised or what have they had to say about the crisis in Sri Lanka?
Well, officially, both China and India have been affirming their support for Sri Lanka, and they have helped through credit lines for fuel, donations of medicine, and dry rations and food in the past couple of months. And when it comes to India, this is in line with PM Modi's neighborhood first policy. And from India, there have been donations worth over 300 million Sri Lankan rupees that were given to Sri Lanka. And in addition, this is in addition to the USD 3.5 billion economic assistance that they have provided in tranches. So when it comes to China, China has also been helping, and recently, China even praised the Indian government for its ongoing support to Sri Lanka, and they also assured their commitment to help Sri Lanka.
That was journalist Marlon Arisinghe in Sri Lanka. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.